Hey everybody, welcome to Fantasy R&R. This is your host Ryan.
And I'm Rob.
And fuck the fantasy playoffs.
This is Fantasy with Rob and Ryan. Fa la 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 fantasy football.
Alright, I'm sure everybody is equally as upset as I am about what transpired this weekend. Absolutely ridiculous. For the poor saps who had people like Tom Brady, Jamar Chase, Alvin Kamara, the list goes on and on. We feel your pain. Rob, what is going on in your head as you see this shit show that happened this weekend?
I don't know, but I don't like it. For sure, this week was just a bunch of malarkey, in my opinion. What do you think, Ryan?
Hogwash. Hogswoggle.
Good word.
Tom Brady is the first one that comes to mind here. I didn't actually have him in a playoff league. I'm in a consolation match with him. It's a team I took over. My cousin said somebody dropped out and they needed someone to just fill the team to make it competitive for the rest of the season. I went on a 3-win streak, but nothing panned out for me as far as getting into the playoffs. Tom Brady, who was the first ranked quarterback in the league before last night, puts up 214 yards, 0 TDs, an interception, and a fumble against the New Orleans Saints. Tampa Bay loses 0-6, and in our ESPN scoring system, 0.48 points. Absolutely wild. It shows that you can't trust anyone. I mean, even Stephanie, who was struggling with Joe Burrow at the helm, she got 12.64 out of him, at least got the TD. I would have thought Tom Brady was going to blow him out of the water.
Yeah, that was super disappointing. I was saving this for the podcast, by the way, Ryan. I was playing a guy who had Tom Brady, so I did well. But I guess this guy stopped checking his team a while ago and had Derrick Henry active, Calvin Ridley, and O.J. Howard at tight end. So it was an easy stomping for me to get into the what we played a week 15, and we get playoffs next week. So it was kind of a nice, easy week for me. And Tom Brady only helped that.
God, that's not even fair.
I know.
Jamar Chase, though, on the other side of that, Joe Burrow does get a touchdown, but it does not go to Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase had 1 reception for 3 yards. What's even more shocking, though, is he was only targeted 4 times. That's kind of the part that blows my mind. I mean, they didn't have the easiest game. By the way, Drew Lock sucks, everybody.
Yes, that's a fact.
Joe Mixon couldn't get going. You're saying Joe Mixon might be out. Is that correct?
That's what I guess early reports right now, people are saying to pick up Samaje Perine. Looks like Mixon might have had an ankle injury, I guess, in the game.
You know, T. Higgins, I told her she might want to, bench him in case the Bengals had a stinker and put in Mooney. That way she's got a last-minute desperation play. We'll see what happens there. True Lock comes in to play in that game against he comes in for Bridgewater. He only throws for 50% completion rate on 12 passes, 88 yards. He did get a touchdown, but like the fucking loser he is, he fumbled away the ball at some point. So Lock is going to be starting this next week. For all of you guys that have a next playoff game coming up, just want to remind you not to pick him up. Alvin Kamara is the next guy that really put up a stinker for me. I was just running away with the league, 10-3. I was on a bye week for the first round of the playoffs, and now just miraculously, I'm projected for 87 points against the guy who's projected for 88 because my lineup was Mahomes, Jamar Chase, Cooper Kupp, Cordero Patterson, who put up 3.3 points, Kamara with 4.10, Kittle with 12.3, and Gronk with 3.9. My bench, I couldn't even have done anything there. Freiermuth at 5.7, Bateman 1.0, Beasley with 5.5, Ingram 2.8. There's nothing I could do. I mean, it's just a terrible fucking time for this to happen. Alvin Kamara, I drafted first round in this league and another league. And we're starting to have that conversation where is it really even worth it? Like, let's talk about him and this next guy on our list here. Is it even worth it to go after these running backs early anymore?
No, I think that we've talked at extent of this. I just feel like any starting running back that you're willing to draft in the top 2 rounds, which generally, how many fly off the board? 10 to 12 probably? They're all sharing carries now. And it makes sense for the NFL to do this to save the tread on their tires, but for fantasy purposes, it's not helping at all.
Yeah, we saw it with McCaffrey. He goes down. Derrick Henry dominating the league goes down. One after the other. Dalvin Cook hurt at some point during the season. Alvin Kamara hurt at some point during the season. Mark Ingram doesn't even really fill in very well for him during that time either. So none of this has panned out. A lot of my best players over the course of the season, like Jamar Chase, Cooper Kupp, I drafted late, like 8, 9 rounds later. And, one of my first draft strategies was going with Kelsey first and then Mahomes. And in another league, I went with Kittle first, then Mahomes. That's, the league I'm in the playoffs in. But unless I have a huge game from Cooper Kupp, I think I'm a little bit screwed there. I'm starting to think, at this point, you can't trust Saquon Barkley. The rookies are doing better. Najee Harris puts up his worst performance of the season, though, regrettably yesterday. And the biggest surprise to me has been Jonathan Taylor, who I drafted second overall in our rookie Dynasty last year in ESPN, mostly because I was forced to. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, we all knew he was going to go first because of this situation he was walking into in Kansas City, where he's going to be a clear-cut starter. Jonathan Taylor was more of a surprise this year for me than anything else. And I have to remind everybody, Jonathan Taylor didn't look like he was going to be the clear-cut starter for the first 3 weeks of the season either. I mean, he was going back and forth with Nyheim Hines. Marlon Mack was going to come back from IR. Now we know that Jonathan Taylor is the real deal. I'm almost scared for him. Look what's going to happen with that. Next year, Jonathan Taylor might be the number 1 overall pick, right? What's going to happen if he goes down?
I mean, if he goes down, it's going to be just the resume from even this year. Like, even with Derrick Henry, people aren't going to shy away from drafting them, let alone Christian McCaffrey. But, you're looking at number 1 pick next year. Of course, Jonathan Taylor has to be in the conversation. Like, who else would you take over him?
Certainly not Myles Gaskin, right?
No. But more about him. As this narrative has played out throughout this podcast, Myles Gaskin and I have had a few one-night stands, but I don't know if I can stand to put up with his lack of production when he should be a lot better. How Duke Johnson scores 2 touchdowns in a game for Miami just baffles me, and now Phillip Lindsay is going to be activated for this game. I don't think you can trust Myles Gaskin for the rest of the season, right?
Yeah, I don't think you can trust Duke Johnson either. He was he was somebody I stashed a lot in a lot of leagues this week, but when they were starting to act like Malcolm Brown was going to come back, so I said, fuck it, I'll throw him to the waivers and just forget about it. So, kudos to the people out there that believed in him and stuck him in at the last minute. You got your money's worth. Myles Gaskin, though, it's starting to look like he's not going to be the starter there. You guys remember Kenyon Drake. He's kind of been back and forth with the Raiders. The same thing happened to him on the Dolphins. If everybody remembers, Damian Williams and Kenyon Drake were on the Dolphins together in their younger rookie years, and they were trading time back and forth and went on to become starters for other teams at one point. So it's hard to really navigate the situation. And then, of course, you're stuck with guys like, Trey Sermon that you drafted, for example. It was kind of a lot of the situation was a lot like Cam Akers for you last year, where I took, we had Clyde Edwards-Helaire go to my cousin, who's not in the league anymore. That team's managed by a real asshole that will be removing from the league. And then I took Jonathan Taylor, and then you took Cam Akers, and Cam Akers looked like he was going to pan out. Now we're in the same situation, but Trey Sermon isn't even playing this year. What are you doing with this guy?
That's a complete heave-ho. We've already talked about this, and with us drafting the way that we are with the 2 rounds for the rookie draft, I have to drop a 3rd player because I'm going to activate Cam Akers and keep him for next year. And I really am hoping to see if he can come back for the playoffs, just to see if, he's worth a dang. But I still believe in him. I think he's going to end up being really good, but there's no way I'm keeping Trey Sermon. I don't even care to wait to see what the pecking order looks like for next year. San Francisco's running game has been a complete mess for the last 2-3 years, and Jeff Wilson, I guess, is a pretty good running back, question mark. I don't know, what do you think?
I've seen that happen time and time again with that team. So I'm not, I didn't get my hopes up. I'm glad I picked him up for a 1-week stream.
Right.
Might have saved my team in ESPN. We'll see what happens tonight with the Vikings, Justin Jefferson against me. But for now, that looked like a one week deal. I kind of feel like I got my points out of him, and I'm not so comfortable starting him next week in the second week of the ESPN playoffs because in that league we do 2 weeks of playing where you can accrue your points. I'm not sure I'm going to start Jeff Wilson, but we're about to talk about A.J. Brown here, and a little bit of a rant that you're going to go on. I just want to throw this out there. Another one of your guys, I just got word. You were telling me it might have been an MCL, but Godwin actually did tear his ACL, and he might be out most of next season too.
Yeah,
so
freaking sucks, man.
We're going to have to see. We'll monitor that situation. But another guy in the IR, A.J. Brown. Go for it.
Yeah, real quick, Jeff Wilson, I think I'd be starting him. I mean, as long as, Elijah Mitchell's going to be sitting out, Jeff Wilson's looked pretty good, man. I mean, he's got the Titans and Texans coming up here soon. I'd say easily play him, if not a running back, definitely a flex position, right?
I'm going to be a little reluctant, and we'll pepper in a quick conversation about Bateman. Or Saquon Barkley here, but I'm going to be a little reluctant to start. I got Waddle coming back, and right. I've also always got Damian Harris and Freiermuth who will be available next week. I can play those guys at flex. What worries me about Wilson is he actually was starting week 11 against Jacksonville, and he was starting week 14. Both weeks under 4 yards a carry, no touchdowns, under 7 fantasy points in the entire game. Right now, Field Yates is out there saying managers need to add Jeff Wilson Jr. now. I totally did it mostly because I saw him in a bunch of other leagues, kind of like he's against me in one league. I decided not to pick him up in another, in a very deep league. I did just assume, okay, if this dude fucks me up in one of these playoff leagues, at least I'm getting the points out of him in ESPN. Might as well take the chance. That's his highest score total since the middle of last year. He didn't even play for most of the season. So I'm a little reluctant to start him against a tough Tennessee defense. Houston I like better, so maybe I keep him on my team until week 17 if I'm in the championship. But I don't have high hopes for it. I'll see what happens, but I'm really at this point just really excited about that Waddle trade. I can't believe that. The guy Carlos said Kent brought into the league. He seems like a great guy, and he managed his team all year long and fought hard and competitive. But that trade where he took Alex Collins from me, I didn't think he was actually going to take that. It's just because he had Chris Carson on his team on the IR, and he was Kamara was hurt at the time, so I thought, he's probably at a weak moment. He probably needs Collins. I was rolling with Collins in my flex and didn't get much from him as a starter, so I thought, let me offer him up for a player I really liked that has potential going forward, and that was Waddle. And if you want to fucking laugh right now about these goddamn playoffs, Waddle is actually was released off the COVID list this morning after the game yesterday. Yeah, the dude could have fucking played. Unreal. I can't believe stuff like that. Let's go down the list here. Forget Barkley and those kind of guys. Miles Sanders has been frustrating you all year.
Yeah, I still don't understand. The Eagles' offense itself has been frustrating me all year. I just don't understand why they can't get consistent playing time or potential production. Excuse me. I don't understand how they can't get production out of these guys. It makes no sense, and Miles Sanders is definitely one of them. Jalen Hurts, just consistently putting up points. I don't understand. The offense has sputtered pretty much since how many weeks, and that Minshew game looked great, but it'll be interesting to see how Hurts plays this week. But Miles Sanders, I don't know. In our Dynasty League, of course, I'm keeping him, but, I think it's, another year or two leash. Myles Gaskin, I could almost unplug because I'm done with that mess of a backfield in Miami.
Yeah, absolutely. Hurts, I'm hoping he, gets his act together against Washington. It should be an easy matchup as far as throwing the ball, but Hurts has not looked very accurate, and they used to think he was kind of an accurate passer back when he entered the league, so it's going to be interesting to see. I definitely am not totally disappointed in Hurts. He had maybe 2 bad games this season, so he kind of did everything I wanted him to do when I was talking him up last year. It's just whether or not he's going to get me over the hump in the fantasy playoffs. I'm a little concerned. I'm going to be watching that game very closely to see if I want to roll with this guy again, next season. I won't be dropping him, but I don't know if I'll be starting him all the time. I got to see it because it does look like Minshew could potentially take his job. Hurts has really got to be fighting for his starting position in this game, and it remains yet to be seen who the actual wide receiver one on the Eagles is going to be. Devontae Smith is emerging as it. Jalen Reagor has looked absolutely horrible. Dallas Goedert has had a few bad games, mostly because of the Eagles' offensive problems, but with Minshew coming in and targeting him like a Travis Kelce, I want to see that. Jalen Hurts has the blueprint laid out in front of him now. Right. So Jalen Hurts has been frustrating me all season. This is it. I got one more league that I think I can win the championship with, and that's our ESPN Dynasty League. I've been in the championship once. All other years that we've been doing this, for the 5 seasons we've been doing it, I have been in second to last or last place, if you can believe that. So this is only the second time I've been in the playoffs, and might be the second time I get to the championship. I need Hurts to produce. I want him to take the reins and get the ball to Goddard and just make something happen, because we know he can put up over 20 points a game. I just don't know anymore if I trust him to always put up over 15.
Yeah, like, I'm being completely honest, man. Like, Jalen Hurts could go out there and have a good game, but I also would not be shocked if, like, in midway through the second, if he's struggling, they pull him out for Minshew. I mean, it's a must-win game for Philly. And, like, I don't know. I think this is a pivotal week. I agree with you. I'd pay very close attention to this game because it might spell Hurts, or he just bounces back and has a good game like he was earlier in the season.
Yeah, and I just want to tell everybody out there, this is going to be a little rough. I'm not sure if I'm actually going to end up editing this podcast and getting it out before the game tomorrow, Tuesday. But if I do, and this is out there and all 4 of you listen to it, I would urge you, go out, and if you have Hurts and you're planning on starting him, it looks like he still might be a little banged up. They haven't totally said that he's 100% to start this game. They're kind of claiming that, they think he will, but I would say for some insurance, go out and get Minshew, because all of your other quarterbacks are going to have played by then. And you're not going to have any options except who's playing for Washington? Not Kyle Allen, but I'll have to look that guy. It's a bad situation over there too. I don't think Heineke's going to play. It's you know what? It might be Kyle Allen. I think remember Kyle Allen, who was on the Panthers? I think he's going to be starting for Washington, and that's your only other option for the playoffs if you were banking on Hurts. So I would say get your upside now. Drop somebody that you don't need on your bench, pick up Minshew, get your insurance policy, and I think you're right. If he does bad, Minshew comes in and finishes the rest of that game, there's nothing you can do about it. But if Hurts doesn't start, you're fucked trying to depend on Kyle Allen to take you to the fantasy playoffs against the Eagles. Kyle Allen, just let people know, when he did come in against Dallas to take over for Heineke when Heineke got hurt, 53 yards in that last quarter, and a fumble loss. So, I mean, he's not doing the team any favors. And it's going to be a wild one for sure. Let's start talking about a couple of other things. Next year's lack of talent in fantasy drafts, as far as team. We're real big on the dynasty of ESPN. We love that franchise feel of managing your team for years and trying to build it year after year. This doesn't look like the greatest year to tank for a draft pick.
No, I really don't think so. I mean, and on top of that, it's not really going to make for that much of an exciting draft either, which sucks to say. But the last few drafts have been pretty good. But one guy that I'm looking at is Kenneth Walker from Michigan State. Good running back. He really held his own this year and looked really, really good. Scored 5 touchdowns against a very dominant Michigan defense. Jahan Dotson, wide receiver from Penn State. Good hands, very quick. A lot of people are talking about Kenny Pickett from Pittsburgh for quarterback. Could be interesting. One thing that we've been talking about is I think if he lands in Pittsburgh, it couldn't be any better of a situation for him. Even if he doesn't start and they let Ben, if they resign Ben maybe to a 1-year team-friendly contract, put him under his wings. Or he starts right away, who knows. But a couple receivers out in Ohio State that I'm thinking of off the top of my head, and of course I'm blanking on their names. Let me try to look them up. But those are just a couple offensive weapons. Nobody's really looking for a dynamite defense or anything.
Yeah, it's
for drafts. So Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson. Those are a couple other names I would definitely pay very close attention to into the draft last year. or next year, excuse me. My apologies.
Right. So, yeah, and speaking of which, speaking of drafts, where are we drafting quarterbacks next year? We've talked about what's going on with running backs.
Yeah.
It's so important to handcuff the running backs you do have.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of backup running backs take over. Now people are saying add Ronald Jones for the rest of the season with the Fournette injury. So instead of muddying your flex options where you've got a bench full of Christian Kirk and Rondale Moore and all these guys, like you're picking up just all these dudes that you think might have some upside, it might be better to waste one of your bench spots on a dude that is backing up two of your main running backs. Like, I can't even believe right now, like, I don't know why I dropped Nyheim Hines to the waivers, not because he got that touchdown and, or anything like that. I wouldn't have started him. I wouldn't have put him in a flex spot, but, like, it's because if Jonathan Taylor goes down, there's clearly value in having Hines.
Sure.
I kind of feel like that's such an important thing. So, we watch all these guys go down this year. Where are we drafting QBs? The QBs have not been getting hurt. We've seen like Lamar Jackson with his illness and his injury. That's one off. And then Jameis Winston. But everybody else has pretty much put up the points where they want. Your favorite quarterbacks of this year and why?
Well, to answer the first part of the question, I don't think it's crazy to draft a quarterback within the third or fourth round. And the kind of quarterbacks that I'm talking about are the Kyler Murrays, the Patrick Mahomes, the Tom Brady's. This year, I really think we could start looking at, Aaron Rodgers is still up there. They've been trying to write him off for the last couple seasons, and he still keeps continuing to produce. And then I think like Justin Herbert's just jumped up in this conversation now. I think the dude's got a cannon of an arm, and he's like super accurate. Josh Allen's another name that comes to mind, though he's had some ups and downs. Like those kind of quarterbacks going into next year, I mean, those are the kind of guys. If you average out their points, I guarantee you it's like 20 plus each week. And then you're even probably looking at, for like Kyler and Patrick Mahomes' sake, because they can run, you're looking at close to 30 for certain games because they're scrambling for touchdowns too.
Right.
And I don't think it's crazy anymore. I mean, there was an old narrative though, like, draft quarterbacks late, but I don't take that approach at all. Like, I really don't. I think a perfect draft to me is getting one of the top tight ends. We talk about this all the time, and then you go running back, quarterback, and there's so many wide receivers later on in the draft that you can take a chance on. I don't think it's a crazy thought to skip on the Stephon Diggs and Mike Evans, Chris Godwin's of the world.
Yeah, and it's so true too, because the quarterbacks in Yahoo especially, they are sometimes projected for 450 points on the season. And then you go and look at some of your running backs that are available, they're projected for like 330. And you're not going to get two of the running backs that are projected for 330 unless you're in an 8-team league and you've got the turnaround pick in a snake draft. So, I mean, in my eyes, that's why I kind of nerfed our ESPN quarterbacks a little bit. I give them a little less points for yards passed, because I want it to be a balanced feel. Right. When you know that you've got 10 teams in a league, or even 12 teams in a league, there's still going to be 20 to 25 starting quarterbacks that are on your waivers, unless you happen to be one of those guys who pre-bench one to kind of switch out with, or feel the season, or you get your bye week ready. But, Mahomes and guys like that, I mean, as odd as Mahomes has been this year, he has still met his point projections for Yahoo. Right. So, me taking Kelsey and then Mahomes, I'm kind of guaranteeing myself a lot of points. And I could have went Christian McCaffrey number one and lost a guy for the whole fucking season. So it's really hard to strategize right now with the drafts. And I'm thinking next year, this is going to be an interesting time. When we go back to start doing football podcasts for next season, I think we're going to have some pre-draft evaluations and really talk about what is the strategy here. Because I've gotten more value out of Cooper Kupp in round 9 than anybody in that draft did from their first round pick.
Right. No, I know. It's crazy. I brought this up before in the podcast. I know I've told you 100 times. I got laughed off the face of the planet for drafting Travis Kelce in the first round. with my 4th pick. And then now I'm like, looking the first 2 rounds of all those running backs, and 80% of them are injured, 90? Like, who's left right now? Nick Chubb's doing really well.
And he was hurt for a little bit.
He was hurt for a little bit. Eckler, he's hurt, and he might be potentially missing a game in the playoffs. And here I am with Kelsey, who just had his best week of the season after people are trying to be like, oh, God, is he struggling? I'm like, dude, Kansas City's got an elite team. It's the same thing with Tampa. They have an elite team. Like, the fantasy players aren't going to hit every week. Because there's one ball.
Yeah, you want the guys that are gonna they're gonna hit 15 out of 18 weeks. That's what you're looking for.
Right. There's gonna be clunkers, and people I think freak out over clunker games. Like, okay, are you gonna sit? Let's just say you made it into the playoffs next week, and you have Tom Brady. You're gonna sit Tom Brady? Hell no, you're not gonna sit Tom Brady.
No.
It makes no sense. And you got to remember that goes for running backs and receivers and tight ends too.
Absolutely. So, biggest disappointment of the season besides these fantasy players in this playoffs, Urban Meyer. Let's hear it.
Yes. Oh, God. Well, Urban Meyer decided to show off his true colors in a new uniform, this time being in Jacksonville, and everybody gave the dude a benefit of the doubt, including myself, and I was like, oh, man, I'm looking forward to this, some change, a winner, and come whatever it was, week 4, whatever, when that news broke out with the girl and the butthole, I knew, here we go. This is going to get bad. And
he's a wiener, all right.
Quick. Yeah, he sure is. And Jaguars look abysmal. It goes both ways, of course, on the players, but the play calling all season has just been atrocious. And, Trevor Lawrence does deserve a little bit of the flack. There have been throws, but man, Urban Meyer just a bad coach. He's just a piece of shit human being, and he pretty much embarrassed his career for the rest of his life, right? I mean, there's no coming back from this.
No, I mean, he thinks, he's like, I'm hopeful I can still win at the NFL level. You can't even win at life right now, you dope. What do you think you're going to do? Like, just you're going to come back and fucking coach the Giants? Good luck there. Right. We've seen a lot of bad things happen with the Jaguars. His mishandling of Trevor Lawrence at the beginning of the season, in my opinion, I'm surprised it took so long for a lot of these news articles to address this. Having Gardner Minshew and Trevor Lawrence play out for the winning position when you're going to trade Minshew anyway. Mm-hmm. What the fuck is wrong with you? Right. If Minshew was even slightly on your trade radar at the beginning of the season, then you invest in Trevor Lawrence and you start him from the get-go and you get every weapon around him that you possibly can. Listen, right. Etienne, no one saw that coming. That kind of shit happens. It's a freak thing. It happened to Corey Davis, one of the most talented wide receivers I've ever seen come into the NFL draft. That stalled his career. Those kind of things are going to happen.
There's another one for you, another Jag.
Yeah, I mean, and listen to this. For God's sake, our Week 15 injury report going into that game: Josh Allen, Tavon Austin, Miles Jack, Marvin Jones. James Robinson did not practice with a heel. He wound up playing and scoring a TD against me in the fucking playoffs after a 4-yard performance. But we have just mismanaged this team over and over and over again.
Right.
It is actually sad. Right now, this is something that I think is going to be shocking to people. My problem with this team is we are actually outpacing a lot of our opponents in certain categories. We have 4.6 yards an attempt on the season for rushing. We are only giving up 3.9, and we're losing every game.
Yeah.
I don't understand how that happens. Yeah. So this dude has been mismanaging the team the whole time.
Oh, yeah.
He's fucking, playing hokey pokey with some, college skank in a bar when he should just be going home to cry about the loss to Cincinnati he just had and get his team ready for the next year. I'm glad he's gone. I think a lot of people heard it. A lot of people, and listen to me. If you had heard our podcast earlier in the year, I said I didn't think he was going to last the year. The dude's gone now, and to me, it's good fucking riddance. But I don't feel good about it. Because starting over never works for the Jaguars. I mean, go ahead and, dude, let's hear it. You've got a podcast out there, I think on YouTube even maybe that you could still find. Laviska Shenault. And Justin, you're talking about the Justin Jefferson thing. Go ahead with that.
Yeah, I did a podcast for a radio station that I did down here, 1010XL Sports Radio, and
Represent.
yeah, and I made a podcast for them to pitch a show, and we did a Jags draft overview after it was over, whatever, and after it concluded. And I remember sitting there thinking to myself, with that second pick in the first round, I was like, oh my God, Justin Jefferson's just sitting there. The wide receivers hadn't went off the board yet. And just like that, the Jaguars go and get Chase on, a linebacker that all the analysts thought he would go like second, third round. He was undersized. He was on a very good LSU defense. And then after that, you just see all these receivers get selected, and the Vikings get Jefferson. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And then we end up with Chenault, who was a Colorado wide receiver, and he was good when he was healthy. And then there was a story that Alabama tried to recruit him, and he was like, no, I want to make my name elsewhere. But, like, how do you trust this guy? This is like the Blake Bortles draft all over again. Looks good as a quarterback for UCF before they were even UCF. I mean, they were okay, but like other players that went to the draft off that team, like Storm Johnson, that broke all sorts of UCF records, went nowhere. And funny enough, ended up, I think, as a Jaguar, and I don't think he's playing anymore, but they've done this so many times where they're drafting these guys that are just terrible, and this year, we have our podcast saying, why in the second round didn't we get Pat Freiermuth? And lo and behold, this guy's awesome, and we drafted a bust quarterback out of Ohio State.
And it's the part that drives me crazy about that is not missing out on a player that's good. It's that we obviously needed a tight end.
Yeah.
We've always needed a tight end. That's our mock draft, flop draft episode. You could find it if you search for it, Fantasy R&R. Just go through the video playlist. We talk about Freiermuth. Rob told me about him a long time ago. He's a huge Penn State fan. Rob, you kind of noticed me in the halls, Bartram Trail High School, a long time because I had a Penn State hat on.
Right.
And we wore the Atticus shirt, fucking Blink 182 motherfuckers. And then, I found out you were friends with my brother. We started talking, and I was a big Penn State fan back then. But I kind of stopped watching college football. I loved Larry Johnson. I was a huge Larry Johnson fan, and number 5 on Penn State. Love that shit. But
remember, he had a successful year with the Chiefs, I believe. Just one
right,
year.
yeah.
Wasn't he like a one-hit
one
wonder?
Year. Yeah, he kind of was. He had a lot of struggles, but again, so you're telling me about, we got on Gaskin together. Mm-hmm. Then you tell me about Freiermuth.
Another
and
former Penn State tight end.
Right, and I'm getting excited. I'm thinking like, okay, well, like this sounds like a good fucking thing. Let's hope the Jags draft him. And we were in the perfect position to do it. And what happened? Freiermuth went second round to the Steelers, right?
Yeah, multiple times we had an opportunity to get Pat Freiermuth. I'm just sitting there screaming like, come on, like it is a huge deal because when you're the Jacksonville Jaguars and you have no payroll and an ignorant fucking front house in Shad Khan that
that curly mustache oil baron motherfucker.
You need to draft players that can play immediately for the Jacksonville Jaguars. You need to draft every year. We need guys that are ready to start. And we take on we can't take on projects. We don't have the money, nor do we have the time as a team. And like Josh Allen was a plug-and-play guy. And when he fell to us, I think with the 7th pick, I was like, oh my God, dude. I was like, we just got to steal the draft. And everybody said it. I was like, this guy will start immediately. And lo and behold, look what happened. Miles Jack, though I feel like he's kind of up or down. He's still reliable, and it's just a shame, man. Pat Freiermuth would have came in and just killed it. And you said it yourself. He's already been better than Kyle Pitts, who went with the 4th pick, that we were questioning, like, why? When you were so desperate of a freaking quarterback. Mac Jones, to me, would be doing the same thing with the Falcons as he would be doing with the Patriots. Maybe the Patriots have a little better of a defense. Yeah, they do, actually. But still, like, Mac Jones, to me, is like Matt Ryan. I thought he'd be the perfect fit for them.
Yeah, it's insane what, these NFL coaches and teams, they're doing less than fantasy managers are these days. I'm telling you, I can't believe some of the shit I fucking see. It goes all the way back to like Vrabel doing 2-point conversion.
Right. Right.
At the end of a game, he could just tie when your team is 7-6. Like, you don't fuck around with that. Put the point on the board, go to overtime. You got a better chance to win there. The other team's just as tired as you are, for Christ's sake. Then I see what the Bills did. They're up 24-14. There's 3 minutes left in the game. They could just put 3 on the board with Tyler Bass. Instead, they throw into the end zone. They got the TD, but the chances of that happening are so fucking minute, and they're up that much for nothing. And then you translate that over to the draft. These dudes don't know what they're doing. Dude, case in point, I don't mean to name drop because I'm not, like harping on the guy or anything. But again, remember at the beginning of the season, some of these dudes are not doing the research at all. Like Carlos was saying when I drafted Freiermuth, he's like, isn't he more of a blocking tight end? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I mean, Rob's talking all this stuff about, I'm looking up every news article I can. It looks like Freiermuth's going to be a plug and play compared to the rest of the waiver wire we've got out there. And the Jaguars are doing the same fucking thing. They're like, fuck this guy. We know what we're doing, but they don't. They take the wrong pick every time. So it just goes to show you, the Steelers have Najee Harris now. They've got Freiermuth. They are an offensive line and a quarterback away from being back in contention.
Oh, yeah.
And we're not.
Yeah. When we should be. Like, that's the most annoying part. Like, there's no reason at this point in the year 2021 is this Jags team this bad. Period. And if it's going to end up being Urban Meyer, then team's going to have to do something. But that loss to the Texans couldn't have been any worse than what it was. That was pathetic.
Absolutely. Couldn't say it any better myself. Guys, in about 10 minutes, Raiders at Browns. It's been moved to today because of the COVID stuff. It is on. They're on track to play. A couple of late breaking news. Looks like Jalen Hurts is slated to start. That's tentative. He could slip down a fucking icicle patch in the morning. Who knows? But right now, Jalen Hurts is slated to start. I just want to end this podcast. We're going to talk about the 5 greatest things the Jaguars have done in the last 10 years.
That's the fantasy with Rob and Ryan. Fantasy R&R.
Keep the change, you filthy animal.